Good afternoon. My name is Domenico De Claudio. For the last couple of years I've been working on a project focusing on the life and work of a Russian painter who migrated to Australia in the 1920s and died in Melbourne in 1958. And this project has taken on the scope of an homage. His name is Danila Vasiliev, and the exhibition that is the outcome of this project is on at the moment at Mars Gallery in Windsor in Melbourne. Of course, no one can get in to see it because of COVID, but it's been extended until the end of October, perhaps into November, so it's a matter of keeping yourselves informed by looking at the website of the gallery. I wrote an essay to accompany the exhibition, and it's been published in a little booklet by Sontag Press. The essay takes the form of a letter to Danila, and that's what the exhibition is called. A letter to Danila, what you hoped for through your lifetime. And I concluded towards the end of my project, my research on Danila, that there might have been 8 hopes, aspirations that he reached, which went largely unfulfilled in his life. The sound in the background you can hear is insistent little blackbirds raking through my autumn leaves, which are still in my garden, looking for little bugs. The 8 points that I concluded Danila arrived at, my conclusion, are the following: to awaken through art, to believe in the moment, to acknowledge simplicity, to abandon hypocrisy, to affirm truthfulness, to redeem loneliness, to immerse in the spiritual, and to embrace timelessness. I'll have to read you this letter in 2 or 3 installments because the time allotted for videos is not long enough for me to complete the entire reading. But here it is, the first installment, accompanied by the little blackbirds seeking their daily sustenance. Dear Danila, pardon me for directing this letter to you with no intermediary, if we could agree that an intermediary suitable for such a task might actually exist. But I know of no more direct way of communicating with you, and I trust that you will recognize the simplicity of my intentions. After all, since I've reacquainted myself with your life and work, you have taught me, even if unknowingly, that clear-eyed approaches to seemingly bewildering issues can often generate unexpected transformations. Over the past year or so, I've felt both the scalding hot and in turn the icy fingers of just such a transformation. I'm not really sure how it's unfolded, but perhaps the state of the world has, even if only in part, facilitated it. So all I can do in response is share with you an account of how I first came across images of your work and stories of your life, and what ensued as a consequence. I'm thankful for your patience in reading this narrative, and I hope for your understanding and consideration in your contemplation of its contents. I first saw your paintings as an adolescent, leafing through a copy of your 1959 Melbourne exhibition catalogue, which had been gathering dust for years on the shelves of my high school library. I was immediately intrigued by the unusual feel your paintings radiated, vastly different from the reproductions of the work of other post-war Australian artists I had seen, such as Arthur Boyd, Sidney Nolan, Albert Tucker, Carl Plate, Thomas Gleghorn, Grace Cossington Smith, Margaret Preston, Godfrey Miller, and my then favourite, Ian Fairweather. The images I saw of your work didn't seem at the time to be visual reproductions of paintings, but rather declarations of feelings, perhaps an inevitable response to what I can only now understand to have been your experience of the endemic anxiety, chaos, and pervasive social disorder that both preceded and followed the Second World War. It seemed to me that this turmoil manifested in your paintings as a mix of hope and melancholy, a kind of empathetic reaching out to those you saw living difficult lives in blissfully happy ignorance. Perhaps, and this is only an assumption, you attempted to acknowledge through such an action the tremendous inequalities that were everywhere besetting your world. I'm no more equipped to understand any of this now than I was as an adolescent, struggling to find whatever meaning I could on the shelves of my high school library. But something stirred in me that day as your instinctive approach to manifesting the conviction alive in your inner world so directly seated itself deep inside my young, raw soul. Even if this unexpected planting never produced a green-leafed outcome, I can tell you that whenever I've stood at the forking of the paths that lead in turn to either the unfamiliarity of a clear-eyed view or to the familiarity that afflicts self-deceit, I've inevitably thought of your life journey marked by a constant determination to always describe the world as it is, however costly it might prove to both your career and your state of mind. And each time I've stood at the path's forking, I have inevitably chosen the way that leads to unfamiliarity, which paradoxically is often accompanied by the gift of clarity. On that melancholy winter afternoon in 1963, I was so affected by what I saw and read in the catalogue that I took it home with me, and I'm ashamed to say I never returned it. I needed to keep it as a talisman of what I sensed might be a possible future life. During the process of reorganising my various archives in early 2020, that very catalogue, a memorial exhibition of the paintings and sculpture of Danila Vasiliev at Melbourne's Museum of Modern Art of Australia, 1959, that very catalogue resurfaced, and since then I've been periodically leafing through its few pages, intrigued both by your life's journey and my own fascination with its ceaselessly quixotic searching. As I came to learn more in various other publications, it became obvious to me that by the end of your life, you had felt largely neglected by your peers. Your creative output was perceived at the time by most art world observers as that of a well-meaning, if uneducated, eccentric, whose depiction of poverty-stricken post-war inner Melbourne and of frontier life in the Mallee was the shallow, overly romanticised response of an inept maverick. That's where I'll leave it for today, and I'll continue my readings in the following few days. Thanks for your attention.